She's my sister. Like I said before, I personally feel that the destructions of Sodom and Gomorrah caused Abraham to go through a period of time where there was a lapse of his faith. Lot, as far as he knew, was dead. Lot was like a son to him. On top of that, it was like God didn't keep his promise. Surely there were 10 righteous people in that land, and yet God destroyed it anyway. So he moves his encampment down to the area of the Philistines, where Abimelech is king. He becomes fearful, and then he lies about his wife. It was a time of a trial of his faith. Now, Abimelech, we see Abraham talking to Abimelech, and then later on we see Isaac talking to Abimelech. And you may wonder, is this the same person? No, it's not. The word Abimelech is actually a term that refers to a position. Just like in Egypt, Pharaoh was the king, but there were many pharaohs, there were many kings. This is the same here. Abimelech actually means son of the king, which means I have the right to be king because my father was king. And every ruler was called Abimelech. Later on, the people of Israel went to Gideon to make him king, and he turned them down. Yet his concubine had a son and named him Abimelech, which means son of the king, Gideon. I find it interesting that God is talking to Abimelech. He was an ungodly king, and yet God talks to him, gives him some instructions, helps him to get through a situation. It reminds me of business people that I have known, where I was convinced that they did not know God as their Lord and Savior, but still at certain times God talked to them, gave them instructions, and they followed it while never accepting Him as their God. Well, here we have a scriptural example of that very thing, where God talks to ungodly people and gives them instructions. Now, it says that he was the king of the Philistines. Now, that's not the same people group that we find in Judges in 1st, 2nd Samuel. No, that's a different people. These people here were actually Canaanites, a part of this heritage here. The Philistines later on were actually a European group that came down by boats and invaded Egypt. Egypt conquered them, kept them as slaves for a while, then eventually got this idea of putting them up into the same area as a buffer. So if any armies marched down the coast heading for Egypt, they had to come to the Philistines first, and they were a fierce fighting group. And so this gave the Egyptians time to prepare if that army had to go through the Philistines first, a different people group. This is one of those stories that I call "it's not fair" story. It's just not fair. Abraham moves his people into the area, becomes fearful, and lies about his wife. So Abimelech, thinking that she's his sister, takes her into his home. He is totally innocent and tells God that. And yet God threatens him, takes him through a national crisis over doing what he did. While God seemed to even honor Abraham. If he prays for you, then I will remove this curse from your people. But if he doesn't, I won't do it. Just doesn't seem fair. To Abimelech, a national crisis. To Abraham, just another step in his growth in faith. It's not fair. Well, come back next time when we give you more insights on the story.